All right. The offseason is in full flight now that the player acquisition periods are over and done with, for the most part, minus some outliers. The draft has come and gone, and the ink has dried on new free agent contracts. Rookie minicamps wrapped up this past weekend with newcomers taking their first steps into their new jerseys and getting acclimated to the new organizations they will be around for the next few years. Besides players fighting for fringe roster spots in the form of low cost free agents, or UDFAs, these are more than likely the rosters that 32 NFL organizations will go to battle with every Sunday starting on September 4th. Every year there are tiers of teams, while all organizations will tell you out loud that every year is a compete year and that they are always fighting for championships. We know as a cognitive thinking human being that isn't the case in the slightest. Some teams are slowly sinking into the ocean, while their captains desperately try and save their own necks. When in reality, we know those teams are more than likely going to be looking for new leadership next offseason with a potential rebuild on the way. Some teams are just leaving the rebuilding stage and look to enter their competitive windows, potentially playing spoiler in the playoffs, catching one of the contenders sleeping and make some unexpected noise. While the top tier, the contenders, have only one thing in mind, and that's Super Bowl or bust. Anything less would be a massive disappointment. We're going to be going through all 32 NFL teams one by one and see where they left off last season, where they currently stand, and maybe peek into the future a little bit at what might be coming down the pipeline in form of potential firings, retirements, or roster turnover for one reason or another. This may be a multi-part video series that focuses on one or two divisions at a time, so this video isn't 7 hours long, but we will see how it goes. Each team will be put into 4 categories: contender, competitive, middling, cellar dweller. Instead of predicting win-loss records, I thought this might be a little bit more simple, so let's dive in. Let's start with the AFC East with last year's division winners, the Buffalo Bills. Last year, the Bills made a bunch of big moves to shed cap off their ledgers, parting with guys like wide receiver Stephon Diggs, center Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Naheem Hines, while letting players like Gabe Davis, Leonard Floyd, Poona Ford, and Shaq Lawson walk in free agency. The 2024 season was seen as a retooling year prior to the season start. Many saw this as blood in the water opportunity for the teams like the Dolphins or the Jets to sneak in and win the division, with the Bills being down and out for at least the 2024 season. After the Bills finished 11-6 in 2023, the smallest step back might have even counted them out for the playoffs, which the Bills hadn't missed since 2018. Of course, that didn't happen. The Bills finished 13-4, easily clearing the rest of the division, which struggled mightily. The Bills did typical Bills things in the playoffs, destroying the upstart Broncos and rookie Bo Nix in the first round, 31-7, eking out a close win versus the powerhouse Ravens in the divisional round, 27-25, and losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, 29-32, after handing the Chiefs one of their only losses just 2 months earlier, beating them 30-21 on November 17th. Amazingly, even with the uptick in success from 23 to 24, the Bills didn't get much out of their 24 draft class, with a lot of their top picks suffering from injuries in one form or another. Keon Coleman was their most touted rookie, especially after the Bills lost both Diggs and Davis earlier in the offseason. They needed production from the rookie. Keon did not produce like they had hoped, and dealing with injuries from borderline cheap shot ex-Bill Jordan Poyer when the Bills played the Dolphins on November 3rd. He ranked 85th out of 106 candidates in contested catch metric at 36.8% and had a drop percentage of 13.5, which ranked him 98th out of 106. Even with all the struggles of the rookie class, the team prospered thanks to new offensive philosophy that centered around spreading the wealth so teams couldn't focus on one player, especially in the passing game like had happened in the past with guys like Diggs. A receiver room that included guys like Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, and eventual acquisition of Amari Cooper from the Browns did enough to allow Josh Allen to have one of his better seasons and win MVP. The passing game also allowed the running game led by James Cook to thrive and run rampant with a solid to elite offensive line. The defense wasn't without its problems, however, and was middling at best, ranking 17th in yards allowed per game, 24th in passing yards allowed per game in 226.1, and 12th in rushing defense allowed per game and 115.5 per game. This past offseason, the Bills' losses weren't as astronomical as compared to the previous year. Losing guys like Von Miller, Matt Collins, and Amari Cooper may sting, but the Bills did add guys like Josh Palmer, Joey Bosa, and Elijah Moore to help fill some of those losses. Not to mention, they should get all their 2024 draft picks back healthy and ready to contribute at a higher level with a year of experience under their belt. In the 2025 draft, the Bills really focused on beefing up the defense with picks like cornerback Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, defensive tackle TJ Sanders out of South Carolina, and defensive end Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. The Bills are firmly in contender territory here, and more than likely remain here until Josh Allen hangs it up. When you have a consistent MVP contending quarterback, it makes the rest of the job so much easier. I believe with the influx of talent on the defensive side of the ball, as well as the previous draft class having a year under their belt, the Bills might even be better than 24. Keon Coleman is still just 22 years old, so some slack should be given towards him, all things considered. Wide receiver is one of the most difficult positions to transfer from college to the NFL, so give him a couple years before making any rash judgments. Next up is the Dolphins, who finished 8-9 and 24. The Dolphins are in a funky place. After the 2023 season and an 11-6 record, they made the curious choice to let Vic Fangio walk, who then subsequently signed with the Eagles and led one of the best defenses in the league to a Super Bowl. It was stated that it was a mutual separation, with different reports coming out about philosophical differences with the team's approach, including player personnel decisions and work ethic questions surrounding the team. The Dolphins the past couple years have been labeled as quote-unquote soft team, part of which stems from their perceived inability to win in adverse weather conditions, particularly the cold. Last year, the Dolphins went 3-5 on the road, with one of those games being against the Rams in sunny California, while admittedly, one of the road wins did come in December in Cleveland, but it's the Browns, so do with that what you will. Going into the 2024 season, there were fairly high expectations, especially with the Bills believed to have taken a step back from the previous year with their roster losses. The Dolphins weren't without their own losses, of course, in the form of defensive tackle Christian Wilkins, guard Robert Hunt, cornerback Xavier Howard, and linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel. They did assuage some of those losses in the draft and free agency, drafting guys like Penn State defensive end Chop Robinson in the first round, offensive lineman Patrick Paul in the second round out of Houston, and linebacker Muhammad in the fifth round out of Colorado State. They also tackled holes in free agency with signings like offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn, tight end Johnny Smith, and linebacker Shaq Barrett. The Dolphins hired Anthony Weaver from the Baltimore Ravens to run their defense. The 2024 season was a massive disappointment, as not only did the Dolphins fail to win their division, which seemed wide open at the start of the year, they failed to meet their previous win total of 11, going 8-9. A lot of the season's woes could be chalked up to injuries, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line was a turnstile of different guys, with Isaiah Wynn missing most of the season with a quad issue, Austin Jackson going down in Week 9 and undergoing season-ending knee surgery, and Teron Armstead having consistent knee issues throughout the season. The Dolphins ranked 28th in yards per carry after ranking number 1 in 23. Tua also went down in Week 2 with another concussion, his third concussion in less than 2 years. Tua missed 4 games with the concussion and another 2 to a hip sprain. Ironically, one of the only reasons the Dolphins didn't completely implode was their defense, which ranked top 10 in key categories like points allowed per game, yards allowed per game, yards per offensive play, and passing defense. They did struggle with penalties, ranking 5th in defensive penalties with 125. After the season, the Dolphins made small changes to the coaching staff, letting go of special teams coordinator Danny Crossman and wide receiver passing game specialist Wes Welker. During the player acquisition portion of the offseason, the Dolphins waved goodbye to safety Javon Holland, running back Raheem Mostert, guard Robert Jones, and wide receiver Braxton Berrios. They also saw Teron Armstead retire in April. They added guard James Daniels from Pittsburgh, quarterback Zach Wilson from the Broncos to back up Tua, tackle Larry Borom, and running back Alexander Madison to help replace their losses and add depth at positions they struggled with last year. During their draft, their first 3 picks focused on trenches, drafting defensive tackle Kenneth Garrett out of Michigan, Jonah Savaiinaea, a very highly thought of offensive guard out of Arizona, and defensive tackle Jordan Phillips out of Maryland on the 5th. The Dolphins didn't have a ton of draft capital in the first few rounds, missing their 3rd round pick after trading it to the Eagles for the opportunity to draft running back Jalen Wright in 24, and then trading up in the 2nd round to draft Jonah with the Raiders, sending the Raiders picks 48, 98, and 135 for picks 37 and 143. The Dolphins ended up making 6 selections in the final 3 rounds after all was said and done, focusing on defense while also drafting running back Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State and quarterback Quinn Ewers out of Texas to back up Wilson and Tua. The Dolphins are such a weird team to quantify. On one hand, I think they're a pretty solid coaching staff, and on the outside looking in, it looks like a solid roster. But my biggest issue is it seems they have pushed all their chips in with Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, and it just hasn't been enough to even win their division, let alone the AFC or a Super Bowl. Tua can't stay healthy, and I'm genuinely worried about his long-term health with the concussions. And Tyreek is already starting to get a little stir-crazy with the realization slowly setting in that he may not win a championship in Miami. A few years ago, the future looked super bright in Miami, but it's starting to seem a little stale now. I would put Miami firmly in the middling category. I think they will win somewhere between 7 and 10 games this year and maybe sneak into the playoffs, but I don't think they're a true contender or even that competitive within their own division. Now that things are a little tougher in the East with New England and New York going a new way and Buffalo being a juggernaut, they are, especially in the regular season. Third up is the New York Jets. It was a complete disaster from the Jets' standpoint, with them going all in on Rodgers, taking them to the promised land, and essentially letting him run the team after they fired Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh. They did everything in their power to make it work with Rodgers, bringing in Nathaniel Hackett from the offense, and putting the band back together, trading for Devontae Adams in October, while retaining Alan Lazard from the previous season. The whole thing was a disaster, and had the Jets finishing 5-12, obviously missing the playoffs. I could give you the offensive and defensive numbers for the train wreck, but it really doesn't matter. The whole thing was a complete catastrophe, and everyone that was involved with the Rodgers situation has either been fired or moved on. So on to 2025. And to begin the offseason, the Jets brought in Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn to run the show on the coaching side and hired Broncos assistant general manager Darren Mogi to run the front office side of things. Aaron brought in Tanner Engstred from the Lions to run the offense and Steve Wilks to run the defense. I won't go too deep into the new coaching staff in the past behind Aaron Glenn, but I do have a neat little video I posted a month or so ago going into a lot of that stuff if you want to take a look. The Jets said goodbye to quite a few starters to start the offseason, with the likes of Devontae, Hassan Reddick, DJ Reed, Javon Kinlaw, and Morgan Moses going to new teams. The Jets also cut Aaron Rodgers, designated him with a post-June cut, splitting up the $49 million cap hit between the 25 and 26 offseason, with $14 million of it counting against the cap in 25, and the rest being taken in 26. Aaron and Darren added new starting quarterback Justin Fields from the Steelers to take over as signal caller in 25. They also retained Jamie Sherwood after his breakout season with the team in 24. They signed Ty Johnson to compete with Alan Lazard to line up across from Garrett Wilson, and cornerback Brandon Stevens from the Ravens to play across Sauce Gardner. In the draft, the Jets took Armand Membu, right tackle out of Missouri, with their first pick, hoping he and Olaf Ashanu will serve as their franchise bookends for the next decade plus. In the second round, they selected Mason Taylor, tight end out of LSU, with Tanner Engstred coming from the Ben Johnson offense. Tight ends were a key producer for the past few years, with guys like TJ Hawkinson and Sam Laporta. In the third round, they selected Azariah Thomas out of Florida State, adding additional depth to the cornerback room. After what just happened to Aaron in Detroit, it makes sense that he would focus on a lot of depth, especially on the defensive side of the ball. In the fourth round, they selected speed specialist Arian Smith, a wide receiver out of Georgia, and Malachi Moore, a safety out of Alabama. The write-up on the Jets and the Patriots will be a little shorter, mainly because there isn't much to glean from the past years, considering those regimes are gone, and especially with the Jets. They are basically trying to torch the memories of the 24 season out of their fan base's minds. The Jets are entering a new regime with new systems on both sides of the ball. Granted, the base scheme will remain the same on defense with the 4-3 look, but the defense itself will be different than what Robert Saleh had installed there previously. Tanner Engstred is a bit of a question mark. More than likely, he will run some semblance of Ben Johnson's offensive scheme he coached under in Detroit, but Tanner is his own man with his own ideas, so it could be a different version of the same scheme, a la Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. I would put the Jets firmly in rebuilding territory with the win totals probably somewhere between 5 and 8 wins. I think the defense will be solid, and playing the NFC South is always a big plus, so there is a reason for optimism. But with a brand new coaching staff, with new schemes, a new quarterback, and offensive line that needs time to gel, I think it will be somewhat of an uphill climb to reach 500 this year. The final team we have up is the New England Patriots, who finished dead last in the division with a 4-13 record. The 2024 New England Patriots were set up to fail. Let's just get that out of the way. The coach, Gerard Mayo, was put in charge by the previous coach due to a contractual obligation with Bill Belichick. The struggles on offense were so far in advance predicted that the Patriots brought in Jacoby Brissett to get beat to a pulp so their new rookie Drake May wasn't ruined in year one. In the 24 offseason, the Patriots lost offensive tackle Trent Brown, linebacker Mack Wilson, and tight end Mike Gesicki in free agency. They went on to re-sign offensive guard Michael Onwenu to a 3-year deal, re-signed tight end Hunter Henry to a 3-year deal, signed receiver Kendrick Bourne, signed running back Antonio Gibson from the Commanders, and wide receiver Jalen Reagor. In the draft, the Patriots took quarterback Drake May out of UNC in the first, wide receiver Jalen Polk out of Washington in the second, and defensive tackle Caden Wallace out of Penn State in the third. The offense was a complete mess under offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt, with little to no talent at the skill position players, with guys like Jalen Polk and Kendrick Bourne providing little to no help for rookie quarterback Drake May. There were some bright spots with Drake May showing good potential in a bad situation, and tight end Hunter Henry and wide receiver Demario Douglas developing a repertoire with Drake. The defense wasn't much better, ranking 22nd in points allowed, 22nd in yards allowed, and second to last in takeaways behind only the Jags. After the past season, the entire coaching staff was jettisoned and GM Elliott Wolf was given full autonomy to conduct a deep and thorough coaching search, with plenty of candidates taking long interviews to gather information from people throughout the league. Just kidding. The Patriots did in-person interviews with Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich to satisfy the Rooney Rule and hire the guy they wanted since the previous offseason and prodigal son Mike Vrabel. Mike was hired to be a steadying hand for the organization that had gone off the rails the past couple seasons, especially with the loss of Bill Belichick. Mike brought in longtime Patriot Josh McDaniel to lead the offense, and Lions defensive line coach Terrell Williams to be the defensive coordinator after coaching with him in Tennessee. During free agency, the Patriots lost backup quarterback in Pinata, Jacoby Brissett, cornerback Jonathan Jones, defensive tackle Devon Godchow, and defensive end Dedrick Wise Jr. They subsequently added wide receivers Stephon Diggs, edge rusher Harold Landry, linebacker Robert Spillane, cornerback Carlton Davis, offensive tackle Morgan Moses, defensive tackle Milton Williams, wide receiver Mac Hollins, and center Garrett Bradbury. The Patriots did a ton of heavy lifting in the defense during free agency while focusing on offense for the draft, drafting offensive tackle Will Campbell from LSU in the first, running back Trevion Henderson from Ohio State in the second, wide receiver Kyle Williams from Washington State, and center Jared Wilson from Georgia in the third. I went into deeper depth on the New England draft in the previous video on how much I liked it. The Patriots are starting to emerge a little bit from a rebuild, but probably not enough to take them out of rebuilding status. The work is just getting started with this roster, and winning free agency having to spend like that isn't really a good thing, and there's a good chance a lot of these free agents won't work out. As for the draft, I really like what they did, but draft picks are lotto cards at best, and it will take more than 1 year or two before the new rookies hit their stride. I think Vrabel is indeed the man to turn the ship around, but it's not going to be a worst to first scenario from where I'm sitting. I could see the Patriots winning anywhere from 5 to 8 games like the Jets. After doing the first script for the series, I firmly decided to turn this into a multi-video project, the next video focusing on the NFC East. If I did all the teams in one video, it would be like 2 to 3 hours long, and it would take me a week to edit and write the script. So instead, I decided to do one division at a time and make sure each team and division got their fair share. I wanted to thank you guys again for watching. I'm noticing a slow increase to viewership per video, which is pretty neat. Also, some of you have been leaving comments, which is cool. I love to see that. Again, I appreciate you taking the time out to watch these videos I put together, and I will see you guys in the next one.